Thanks for joining us today. This is Seth Brickner from Impact Learning Systems, and the topic I'll be covering in this webinar is the art and science of handling objections and recommending solutions. This webinar runs about 12 minutes, and during that time, I hope to introduce you to some sales skills that can help you better handle and sometimes even overcome objections from your customers. Where do we get the crazy title for this webinar? Well, the word science comes from the Latin scientia, meaning knowledge. It's one thing to know something, and it's another to know when and how to apply that knowledge. Knowing when and how to apply knowledge requires both skill and judgment, and that's a real art. When you combine both a step-by-step methodology with the skill and judgment of knowing when to use it to your advantage, you'll find it much easier to handle objections. We'll be covering both the science and the art of handling objections and recommending solutions in this webinar. Why do people put up resistance to sales calls and object to the great offers that you're trying to communicate to them? There are a variety of reasons. Here are three of the main ones. Some people are suspicious of anything that they perceive as a sales call. Other times people just simply can't make up their minds, or they don't want to commit to something on the spot. Or they may have a problem with some aspect of your offer. Now, the first two reasons that you see here are examples of resistance. When customers react with an immediate negative response to our sales attempt, we call this resistance, and it can take a few different forms. Pushback is an immediate reaction, such as, "I'm not interested." The customer may not use those exact words, but the message is the same. "I don't want to be bugged by this." Indifference is exactly that. The customer doesn't see any reason to be excited about your offer, at least not yet. Now, stalling is a tactic that many people use when they feel it would be impolite to tell you no. It doesn't mean you have to give up hope, and it doesn't necessarily mean the person needs more time. As with indifference, they just haven't seen the connection yet between their needs and your offer. Here's an example of a resistance statement. "You know, I'm not sure. I'd like to think about it." Now, an objection is exactly that. The customer takes issue with some aspect of your offer. There are a couple types of objections. There could be an objection to a real problem or simply a perceived problem due to a misunderstanding. Let me give you an example of that. "There's no room in the budget for that until Q3. Now, if the person who made this statement truly understood how much money was involved in this offer and how much money was in the budget, then this could be a real problem. If there was a misunderstanding about the amounts that were involved, then perhaps this is just a perceived problem that could be cleared up with a little bit more discussion." So when you come up against resistance, there are a few steps that we can take to move beyond that obstacle and see if we can keep the conversation moving forward. Think of this as part of the science or the step-by-step methodology of dealing with resistance in the sales process. The first step is to acknowledge what the customer has said. The next step is to ask another question, to encourage a dialogue. My goal after that is going to be to continue the conversation or try to reschedule the call. Let me give you an example. Suppose I sell nutritional supplements and the potential customer I'm talking to says that she doesn't take supplements, she just tries to eat a healthy diet. I could say something like, "You know, that's great. Eating a healthy diet is really important. Do you know how much omega-3 you're getting in your current diet?" Now, the reason I'd ask this is that most people, unless they take nutritional supplements, don't know how much of this nutrient they're getting in their diet or even why this nutrient is important. This may engage the customer long enough for me to better understand her interest in her health or to see if there's another time where she might be more inclined to talk to me about this. When it comes to handling objections, here are some of the steps that professionals use. Again, we're going to start by acknowledging what the customer has said. I'm then going to clarify the objection to make sure I know what the customer is objecting to. I'm going to offer value to outweigh the objection. And finally, I want to confirm agreement with the customer. Here's an example. Let's suppose I'm a managed service provider, and I'm talking with the customer about upgrading their service level agreement. The customer says that, you know, they just can't afford this Tier 3 plan. They know it would be great, but it's just not in their budget right now. Here's how I'd use this skill model to handle that objection. I'd start by saying, No, you're right. You need to do what makes financial sense for your business. To make sure I understand, is it the total budget that you're looking at, or is it the cash flow on a monthly basis? The reason I ask is that last year you spent close to $3,700 on service that would have been covered under the Tier 3 plan, and most businesses find it works better for their cash flow if they can budget a set amount each month rather than be hit by these bigger bills at random times. I then need to make sure that the customer and I are on the same page and that I've correctly identified something of value that outweighs the objection. I say something simple like, does budgeting like this for your service expenses work better for your cash flow? Now, when it comes to the solutions that I want to recommend, I need to keep a couple things in mind. My solutions need to be relevant to the customer's needs. And here's where some of that art comes into the process. The better you understand the needs of your customer, the better judgment you'll exhibit in the solutions you recommend. Make it something relevant to the customer's needs and to the conversation that you're having with them. This shows that you're paying attention to what the customer is saying and that you care about helping her or him find a solution that solves a problem or addresses a need. You also want to make sure to suggest only those things that you know your product or service can deliver. In order to suggest something relevant and know that you'll be able to deliver on that suggestion, you need to clearly understand how the customer will benefit from your recommended solution. Here's an example. Suppose I sell auto insurance and I'm talking to one of my clients about how she can save money on her existing policy. I may point out to her that for $10 extra per month, she could add roadside assistance coverage. And given the fact that she's averaged 2 to 3 roadside assistance calls per year, she could save an average of about $65 each year with the additional coverage. Now, this solution is both relevant to her desire to save money, it's something on which I know I can deliver, and it's something for which you can clearly see how she's going to benefit. This will make it easy to explain to her, and when your solutions are easy to understand, your customers are more likely to adopt them. Let's hear a conversation in which we use these steps to overcome both resistance and an objection. Here's a conversation with a customer calling about ways to reduce her cell phone bill.
Carol, let's see. You use just about 2,400 minutes this month. Have you thought about upgrading to our unlimited days and nights calling plan?
Oh, no. I'm not interested in buying a more expensive plan.
Oh, sure. I understand. You want to keep your cost as low as possible.
Right.
Tell me, Carol, do you think that last month was unusual, or do you think that you may exceed 2,400 months more often in the coming year?
Well, I don't know. I guess it's not that unusual. In fact, as I think about it, it could happen again next month when we begin to apply for permits.
Ah, okay. Well, if that's the case, you'd be money ahead by, well, now let me calculate this quickly. Yeah, it looks like August. So August, if you were to upgrade to unlimited days now.
Well, that's not bad. How much more would this plan be per month?
That runs $35 more per month.
Oh, no. I can't afford that. Between text and internet and call charges and taxes, we'd be spending way too much.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, let me see what we can do about that. You mentioned both text and internet. Now, you want to reduce the total cost for all the lines in your household. Is that correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Well, here's something to consider. The Unlimited Days plan includes unlimited text messages and also internet access for all lines on your account. So compared to what you have now, you'll have more flexibility on each of the lines, and it actually works out cheaper when you consider the total for all the lines on your account.
Really? That'd be good.
Absolutely. And reducing your total cost for all the lines combined is what you're aiming to do. Do I have that correct?
Well, yeah. Well, actually, you know what? This sounds like it actually could really be good for us.
So that's what it sounds like when we put it all together. Let's review the key learning points that we've covered here. The first step when it comes to handling resistance is to acknowledge what the customer has said. I then want to ask another question to encourage a dialogue. And my final goal is going to be to try to continue the conversation or reschedule the conversation. When I come up against an objection, I still want to acknowledge what the customer has said. I then want to clarify the objection, offer value to outweigh the objection, and finally, confirm agreement with the customer. Now, when it comes to solutions, I want to remember that my solution needs to be both relevant to the customer's needs and something on which my product or service can deliver. That's it for this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. If you found this information valuable, please be sure to explore the other resources that we've published here and on impactlearning.com. Thanks so much for joining us.